I love this city, but this train becoming a real fucking problem. Let's talk about that. Yo, what's going on there, YouTube? It's your boy Marcus Levy, the Angry Ranter, here for vlog 203 in the Angry Ranter Vlog Series. Let's talk fucking O train. So, I managed to get on the train, and it goes about 3 stops, and then sits 1 station before the end of the fucking line, and it's out of service. Entire train system out of service. Fuck this bullshit, man. Like, well, I've been waiting since grade 12 for this shit to open. You think they would have figured this out by now. But they tried to butt rush a 10-year job into essentially a 5-year span, which they were late on their initial promise of 4 years. So, I mean, and I'll admit, when you're doing the fucking testing for the train, you can't obviously test for 1 million fucking people, but this is ridiculous. How was it fine the first week it was open, and then every other week after that, there's just been problem after problem after problem? Like, this is bullshit. I mean, thankfully, as I said, I'm 1 stop, train-wise, away from where I can go catch my bus. I'm not completely stranded, like, at work or something. But this train's been breaking down every day. Like a fucking roller coaster tycoon ride. And having delays, and then having to put other buses in. It's costing us a shit ton more money right now than it's worth. And I really hope they don't scrap it. I'm not saying that's on the table, but I'm concerned one day that might be on the table. That if this shit keeps fucking around and they can't fix it by next year when they start phase 2, like officially start phase 2, they've done a lot of tree clearing and a lot of setting up to start the next phase of the train. But if we can't get phase 1 done right, how the fuck are we going to figure out how to connect extra stops and extra lines and stuff like that? We're not going to be able to figure this shit out on time. I am a little lost for words, mostly because I'm tired as shit right now. But the Angry Ranter is never without actual words to say, so I will say thus. They really need to get moving. They need to fix this shit so that it's not a problem anymore, because if it's a problem now, they were very concerned over the winter that it's going to be an even bigger problem. And I think if we're hearing issues about the O train and all this other crap right now, imagine what it's going to be like when it's minus 30 and people are crowding onto the train and, doors frozen shut, no one can get off. And so they have to, send a crew to, break doors open in order to bust people off the train. It's gonna be a shit show. And what was a shit show was back there when Numbnuts, who was fucking driving the train, was making an announcement at the same time. Numbnuts back at their central station was making a mass announcement over the PA system. Numbnuts on the train couldn't shut the fuck up for 5 seconds to let their stupid, either automated announcement or the announcement of whoever is louder. So it was kind of like, attention all travelers, attention all travelers. And I could hear the person out on the station, but because the doors were fucking wide open, couldn't hear Numbnuts, who's driving the fucking train, trying to tell us to get off and transfer to the other side. Couldn't fucking hear anybody. And essentially it was saying, you need to backtrack 2 train stations by crossing over to the other side and taking a train to Blair. But yet they were saying that everybody needs to transfer at Lyon Station, which would literally send me backwards 2 stops. So instead, fuck it, I'm gonna walk. I'm gonna walk the 10 minutes down the fucking road. As you can see, we're only at almost 5 minutes into this vlog. And the bus stop's really not that far from here. Where that brown building is basically where the bus stop is across the road. That's Scott Street and Tunney's Pasture Station. It's really not that far. So I figured now is probably the best time to get vlogging, now that we're here. But enough of this fucking bullshit with the train. Let's talk about something positive. I finished my first ever book last night. Whoever said reading, fuck you. Anyway. No, I finished writing my first ever book. And so now it's in the editing process. I got signed up with the Amazon Kindle Online self-publishing, as well as I'm getting signed up with the Apple Books publishing. And the plan is to release my first book, the Anti-Judgmentalism Handbook, of which I can sort of talk about all of that fun stuff in a vlog tomorrow, where I'm a little more awake, maybe. I can talk about sort of what's going on with that, especially since I fully plan on getting into the editing of the book tonight. I'm just leaving work now, going home, obviously. But I want to get into the editing process of the book, get a few beta readers together, people who are willing to take a look at the raw file and sort of just tell me, and I'm not looking for edits because I'm going to be editing my book. I know they're like, oh, you should hire a a professional editor. Nah, that's a waste. I know what to look for. I'm not stupid. I know how to look for spelling errors and grammatical errors and stuff like that, and run-on sentences and stuff like that. And who knows their book better than me? And we live in this world where I don't need to go through one of like the big 5 publishers. I don't need like Penguin or anything in order to actually get my book out there and online. And whether millions of people ever read it, I suppose I don't care. It would be fantastic if I ended up getting the book online and selling it and making tons of money off of it, and people were actually reading it and all my follow-up books, because 'tis the goal with philosophical material is to spread the word. But if nobody reads it, nobody reads it. That literally just makes me the modern day Nietzsche. Somebody who writes something that nobody reads until after I'm dead. But not to mention, it'll be all online. There will be no physical copies of this book. Or at least that's what I'm thinking about. I mean, part of me wants one physical copy of the book. So at least I can have a physical copy of my own book. But I also like the idea of e-copies. So as long as I at least get that, I'll be happy and proud of my work that I've accomplished. But now, as I said, we're into the editing phase, of which I'll keep you all apprised. I'm looking at a Jan 1, 2020 release. 1, so that it'll be ready for right as the new year strikes, but 2, so that right as we begin season 2 of the Angry Ranter show, I can plug my book. But there is going to be a side piece. So, there's a number of essays that I write, or have written this year, that are great accompaniments to this book. And so I'm going to be publishing every year alongside my book a series of meditations. I think from the way I got it was a philosophical meditation is simply a slight conversation on a particular topic, or what I consider just a short essay of 1 to 3 pages, where I can outline and premise and preface a topic that I want to talk about, and potentially to talk about in further detail come the future. It being one of those things that, because it being one of those things that could outline future material. You know, like my books of the future could and are often based on and premised by some of these meditations. Not so much the first book. The first book, it's really hard to say that it was inspired by a previous meditation, considering there were none before this book got written. The only thing this book was inspired by is sort of my disgust and hatred of our overly judgmental society that we live in. And so that to me is the only preface for the book, only inspiration. Well, and I was kind of in the middle of writing another book, and what happened is I decided, no, these ideas are a little too broad for me to be sort of starting out with. And if I want to sort of own the space as like the father of anti-humanist philosophy, I need to write that introductory keynote anti-humanist piece, of which, I got the first book going, and then I actually have a list of all the other books that I plan on on writing, or at least at the moment that I plan on writing, and we're doing them one at a time, and I give myself 1 year on each of them, and then I'll review the list every January and say, does the next book and those after it still fit in the criteria that I'm trying to write? And if it does, great. If it doesn't, great. Then I know what to do. I can fix stuff. I can edit stuff. I can change stuff. I'm allowed to do that. It's my work. But it's mostly about saying, hey, does what I'm writing next fall perfectly in line with what I've already written? And that's the big piece. I want to make sure there's congruency and proper flow to all my books. I want to make sure that, because here's the thing, you could write, like I did, a piece of literature, a piece of philosophical literature. It's about 31 pages single-spaced. So once I double-spaced it, it came out to something along the lines of 55 pages. It's over 20,000 words. It's an opener. I do not and did not expect this book to be 100 plus fucking pages. Even though, in your ebook, you might end up flipping 100, 150. Just because you're reading it on a 4.7 inch screen on like your iPhone 6S or something. Or even on a slightly bigger screen. You're still going to flip over 100 pages on like an ebook format. But I'm not looking for this to be the longest book of the century, if you know what I mean. I'm not looking for this book to take up a whole ton of space. It's basically to say, this is who I am, this is the kind of shit I'm going to talk about. And then my second book, which maybe I'll introduce here, that I know needs to be written, is a book called Anti-Humanism. That's going to be my second book, where I'm going to take a deeper dive. I'm going to spend some time before I truly get cracking on that book, reading some humanist philosophers and being able to sort of rebuttal them with why I think we've grown past this very primitive understanding of the way our world works. But either way, guys, thanks for watching today's vlog. All the social media is down below, including a link to the blog with new entries where I talk about and outline my book. Check those out. Don't hesitate to like, subscribe. I'll see you guys tomorrow for 204. Peace.